Welcome to the Guns and Noses podcast. My name's Helen Taylor and I am the owner of Guns and Noses, and I own 3 Labradors. We're here to talk about real moments, real lives, and the wins, the wobblers, and the occasional up yours moments. We're talking about those dogs with enthusiasm and us humans who are trying to keep up. So why don't you sit back, grab a brew, slow down, and listen in. Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Noses podcast. Now, the topic of today's podcast is going to be about food and your dog's nervous system. So, before anyone thinks that this is going to be about bribing your dog or stuffing food into them so they don't notice the world around them, it's definitely not going to be about that. This isn't about shoveling treats down your dog's throat, and it's not about distracting them from the environment. But it's also not about using food as a shortcut or a cheat option. This is about understanding what your dog's nervous system is doing and how their response to food gives us a lot of incredibly valuable information. So let's start with something that I see all the time. You have a dog who will happily take food in the house. They'll work beautifully in the kitchen, the living room, maybe even the garden. But then the moment that you step outside, you hit the street, suddenly nothing. They won't take food, they might sniff it and turn away, they might spit it out, or they even give you that look as if to say, yeah, right, I don't want any of that. And this is usually the point where people start to worry. They start to maybe think that the dog's ignoring them, that they're not food motivated, or some people go one step further and think that they've done something wrong. But let's pause that thought for a moment. Sometimes, and this is important, it really can be that the reward you're carrying just isn't strong enough to compete with the environment. I'm just going to put that into simple human terms. Imagine you've booked your favourite holiday. It's somewhere that you've been year after year, you absolutely love going, and you're really excited. You've been counting down the days. You've even got one of those apps that does the countdown timer for you. And someone says to you when you arrive, do you fancy coming and having a brew with me? Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a cuppa. I love a good cuppa myself. But you really want to dump your bags, go to the bar, suck up the atmosphere, socialise and just feel that buzz. You've just landed on holiday. You're going to very politely, hopefully, refuse the tea and head off to the bar. Not because the tea is bad and not because you hate tea, but because the environment is more motivating than the offer. Dogs are exactly the same. But this is where it gets really interesting. You might have tried chicken, sausages, cheese, pate, every high-value treat known to man, and your dog is still refusing the food. That tells us something much deeper. At that point, it's no longer about motivation. It's about overload. When dogs feel overwhelmed, anxious, or unsafe, their body can flip into what's known as the sympathetic nervous system. This is the fight-flight state. You might have heard that. And here's the key thing to understand. Eating is definitely not a priority in this system. Let's think again about humans. If you're sitting in a waiting room before an interview, your heart might be racing, your stomach might be tight, and someone offers you food. They might offer you a biscuit. Most people would say no. Not because they don't like it, but because eating feels wrong in that moment. Your body is preparing for something important or stressful. Digestion switches off. Dogs work in exactly the same way. If your dog won't eat, it's often because their system is saying, we don't feel safe enough to do that right now, or we're too excited to do that right now. This is where I want to talk about enthusiastic dogs for a moment. These are often the dogs that people describe as goofy. They might always be on the go. They never stop, or they're just mad. We can probably all think of one of those dogs. And yes, they can be joyful, fun, and full of life. Of course they can. But constant movement, running, spinning, bouncing, and an inability to settle can also be a sign that a dog feels unsafe or is completely over aroused. These dogs are often living in the sympathetic nervous system far more than we realise. They're not being silly and they're not choosing chaos. Their system is saying, I don't know how to slow down. If you have a dog like this, slowing them down isn't about dulling their personality. It's about helping them recognise what they can and can't cope with, and when they're tipping over threshold. By slowing things down, you're giving their nervous system a chance to settle, process, and regulate. And that's how we help dogs learn to manage their emotional responses, rather than constantly reacting to the world around them. Now, this is the part I really want you to take away. The moment your dog refuses food, slow down. Not dramatically, don't have to skid to a stop. Not with frustration, just a pause. Take a breath and ask yourself, what just happened that might have tipped my dog into feeling unsafe or overwhelmed? Was it a noise, a dog appearing, a tightening of the lead, a change in space, a build-up of lots of little things? Instead of pushing on, wait. Give your dog a moment, wait for their attention to come back to you, just for a moment, and if, after that pause, your dog starts taking food again, that is huge. Because what you've just done is help their system cool down. They've moved back into rest and digest. They're thinking again. Their brain is switched on. This is often the bit that people miss. If we disregard this information, if we push on regardless, our dreams of nice lead walking and reliable recall go out the window, not because our dogs are being difficult, but because we haven't taken the time to understand what they're trying to tell us. A dog who feels unheard or overwhelmed can't focus. They can't learn and they can't make good choices. But when dogs feel heard and supported, they can move forward. They can learn. They can become calm, confident, well-rounded dogs. And this is especially important in new or novel environments, places where everything smells different, sounds different, and feels unpredictable. If we want reliability out there, we have to build safety first. And here's the really important reframe. When you offer treats in that moment, it's not about changing behaviour. It's not, I need my dog to do something, or to distract them, or to keep their head down. It's about understanding where their nervous system is. Food becomes an opportunity to understand what's going on. If they can eat, learning can happen. If they can't, something needs adjusting. And that information is what allows you to change what you do next time before your dog tips into overload. This is where we need to be honest. Slowing down is a skill humans need to learn, and it's a skill our dogs also need to learn. We live in a fast world, fast walks, fast expectation, fast fixes, but nervous systems don't work on a stopwatch. Every time you pause, instead of pushing on, you're teaching your dog how to regulate, yourself how to observe, and both of you how to recover together. That isn't weak training, that's advanced training. So here's something to reflect on this week. Next time your dog refuses food, instead of asking, how do I get them to take it? Try asking, what would help my dog feel safe enough to think again? That one question can change the entire direction of your training. If this episode has made you rethink rewards, you're not alone. This is one of those quiet mindset shifts that makes everyone feel calmer and clearer. You're not failing. Your dog isn't broken. You're just learning to listen to a deeper layer of communication. And when you do that, progress stops being forced and starts being built. Thank you for spending this time with me. If today's episode helped you slow down, feel seen, or think a little differently about your dog, then it's done its job. Remember, progress isn't about perfection, it's about observation and reflection. You're not behind, you're not failing, and you're definitely not alone. Until next time, keep training kindly and try to keep up.